So I've just got off a train at Warsaw and I've been in Augustu for a place in the lakes and Polish countryside. And I got a taxi to the station and there was a taxi driver who I decided to practice my Polish with, and at one point I said, "Czy pan lubi mieszkać w Augustów? Do you like living in Augustów?" He quipped back something along the lines of, "Where's the ripcord so I can get out of this place?" The emotion of how he responded kind of told a story, but I didn't understand the simple sentence that he said, the kind of quick fire response to a question. And then I got on a train and I was in a carriage, one of those carriages with the corridor down the side, so you've got just 6 seats. And a Polish family bundled in, a husband and wife and 2 kids. And I thought, that's an opportunity to practice, or at the very least listen to Polish, because a nice contained environment, one of those closed, whatever they are, carriages where you close the door and pull the curtains. And they were chatting away. Again, kids, straightforward Polish. And he was actually at one point on a phone call. I got my laptop out and I sort of pick up a smashing of words. Couldn't string sentences together such that I really understood what they were saying. But rather than flip to, because I find myself with my Polish adventures, my language adventures, flipping from, oh yeah, see if I can understand what they're saying, and I'll sit there and I'll listen. Oh, there's a word I recognise, another word I recognise, but I can't quite make sense of the entire sentence. And I'll get annoyed and say, well, there's no point in trying to understand a conversation on the train, let's just sit down and do some Polish homework. And then I get a bit angry, and this is the loop that I've been into for a number of years now, which was a loop, interesting, I was in respect of skiing and certain other pursuits, which I'll come on to later in this series. But rather than do that, I just accepted that I was where I was. I was like, well, this is the situation. And I didn't try to understand what they were saying. I did some preparation for this vlog and let go sense of inadequacy around the language. Yeah. And I eyeballed the problem. So what is the problem? Well, first of all, it is possible that I could speak Polish, in spite of the fact, the various limitations that I spoke about in the previous vlog. And it certainly is, at least considering the fact that maybe my attitude and my approach is wrong, maybe it's not me, or my past, or my environment situation, yeah. And I might as well explore this for the view guys of the vlog and for other reasons. I feel quite, feel like there's something quite interesting here. A few guys had messaged me after the last vlog, some helpful encouragement, and recommended this course, this program, this language, famous linguist on track, recommended a guy called Michael Thomas, who's dead now. I did a little bit of research, and actually I agree with him in one key respect, which is that the major problem is stress. It's really interesting. That is almost the biggest obstacle, probably the biggest obstacle of all, and why people give up. But as I went and had a look at all of this and thought about podcasts, courses, methods, and so on and so forth, I then concluded that ultimately, really, you've got to tailor something to yourself, and you've got to tailor something to yourself where you are now, and in the, and it's got to be current. So Michael Thomas, he died in 2005 or something like that. And, we're talking 50 years ago when he pioneered his technique. I looked at the technique and it felt like a bit same old, courses and programs with the fresh approach to, speaking the language. But ultimately, you've got to tailor it to yourself. And, you know, for example, for me, and I've tried this, I've been in a choir, or you could join a chess club of old guys who only speak Russian, don't speak English, then you'd be forced to speak Polish. When I've done that, I've found that it's frustrating because I've not got just enough conversation level to, get a bit of a flow and a bit of a positive feedback loop going. What I need is some kind of a bridge. And it made me think about not so much the techniques and the methods that there are out there, and people are always willing, because they want to help, to push you in a certain direction. I've done this course, I did this, this program worked for me, a private teacher worked for me, you know what I mean? There's a plethora of ways of doing it. But often the problem is you kind of you jump on the bandwagon, you discover that it's actually not tailored to who you are and where you are and your sort of situation. So actually it's better to look at underlying fundamental principles. So take, for example, my experience with skiing. It didn't take me a long time, and it didn't take a huge amount of work and effort. When I was out on the ski slopes, I remember I'd been doing it for 15 years unsuccessfully. I had an experience of a world, kind of a snowy paradise that I'd never really even known had existed. The coach actually created certain drills, even with poles and things like that, that were specifically address the hang-ups that I've got around this area. And then it came down to ultimately, all the hang-ups just sort of fell away, they just were blown in the wind. When she finally, by means of this process, had got kind of me to have this aha moment, which I think she was, driving towards and looking for. When I realised it was kind of like, in a way, simple physics. If your weight isn't over the front of the ski, the skis are designed in such a way that they won't work unless your weight is over the front of the ski. It's a kind of very fundamental level. It's quite a basic thing. But you can't teach that in the classroom or listen to someone tell you how skiing works. You actually have to experience it. When you do experience it, as I did, there was a feeling of joy, of delight, of enthusiasm, not necessarily confidence, that came later. But it was, and you know how in those movies, for that key moment in the story, when they actually both track backwards with the camera, but also focus in, and it creates this. You've seen those scenes. It's usually a guy, and you see the background behind him kind of vanish, and he's growing, and it's a very powerful cinematographic technique. And that's that moment. It's kind of knowledge with delight. And actually, then I was on my way after that. Obviously, I had to deal with obstacles, but I never forgot that moment. So the question then becomes, how can that be applied to Polish and language skills? Now, clearly a teacher is important, but I've had dozens of teachers and classes and whatnot. And it seems kind of rather expensive and excessive just continually having classes. And I've had this experience where I seem to be able to speak and understand it in front of a teacher in a kind of like a controlled environment. But when I go out to Żabka afterwards and meet the drunk stood outside asking for change or a cigarette, I don't understand a word of what he's saying. Or even when he's not drunk, I don't understand a word of what he's saying. So I've been using this year AI, ChatGPT for my legal business, Claude for my writing, and finding it extremely helpful and powerful. And so just last week, I kind of logged into ChatGPT and I said, I researched it for help with language, schools locally or products and materials. And I then thought, and it obliged, and I thought, well, what about you, ChatGPT? Can you help? And very quickly, I was able to switch over to an audio function, choose a tenor of voice, and find that, put my headphones on, a coffee shop at 8 o'clock in the morning for 20 minutes, I was having a conversation with an artificially engineered bit of intelligence. And then when I put it down and I went and got another coffee later, I felt kind of slightly in the zone, like a sporting term, and I use that intentionally. And I suddenly felt for a while I was communicating with them without any filter, head filter. How do I construct this sentence filter? So I've just kind of flirted with it, dipped into it, and I just wonder whether or not all these products, these courses, these teaching techniques, it was quite colloquial what was my particular version of Claude, of ChatGPT, and I had to speak and I had to listen, and I just wonder whether or not, hang on, we're in the 21st century now, there's this artificial intelligence, this new technology that could be the death knell for so many conventional teaching products. Anyway, the point is to keep an open mind, to trial it, to create a structure, to commit to it, and I will be reporting back to you as to whether or not I have made progress. At the end of the day, it feels like a teacher, and one who's quite sweet and polite when I get it wrong.